Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I'm back with my pans and plans. So here's just some advice. When certain members of Congress promise that they're going to take away your fundamental rights, my suggestion would be believe them. Just this last week, Lindsey Graham from South Carolina introduced a piece of legislation, not very succinctly called, the Protect Pain-Capable Unborn Children from Late-Term Abortions. What his bill would do would put a national ban on all abortions after 15 weeks. Now, let me just remind you that not very long ago, Lindsey Graham credited the United States Supreme Court for saying that states would have the right to legislate regarding abortion rights. But now he has introduced a bill that would actually apply everywhere in the country. This is something he wants to pass. I think it is unlikely that it's going to catch fire, but I think it's important to know what is going on. Another bill that was introduced this week was introduced by Representative, that's in the House of Representatives, Buddy Carter from Georgia. And I must admit, a man that on a number of issues, because we're on the same committee together, the Energy and Commerce Committee, that we've actually worked together. Buddy likes to say that he is really the only active pharmacist right now in the House of Representatives, and that is true. But what his legislation would do would allow pharmacists to make the decision whether to or not to fill a prescription if they have a hint that it might cause an abortion to occur. And of course, this could actually extend to some medications that are for cancer, for example, because some medication may actually have the effect of interfering with reproduction. And this would allow these pharmacists, even in small pharmacies where there may not be another pharmacist, to say their conscience compels them not to fill these prescriptions. This is the kind of thing that we have been seeing. So last week, I had the pleasure and privilege of going to a very large celebration of the passage and earlier signing by the President of the United States of the Inflation Reduction Act. It was at the White House, out on the lawn. There were lots and lots of happy people there, not just legislators, but people who had been working long and hard on this legislation. And it was a really great celebration. The president was just on fire, talking about all the wonderful things that this legislation will do. It will be the largest ever federal investment to address the climate crisis that we have ever seen. $369 billion will be for projects all over the country, many different projects that are expected to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. So this means getting to work right away. It is projected to save American families an average of $1,800 in energy costs. One of the speakers at this wonderful event was a representative of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, a union member, who was talking about how much this is going to help their members. Because yes, this bill is also projected to create about 18 million clean jobs, new jobs, and good paying jobs. And as the president pointed out, The IBEW will be among the unions that will be able to install the electric charging stations that we need for our electric cars all over the country. We're going to see them proliferate everywhere so that you're going to be able to use your electric car. We're also going to see lowering of prescription drug prices, especially for people who are on Medicare. We know that 1 out of 4 people on Medicare say that they really have a hard time affording their often life-saving prescription drugs. So this legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, will cap out-of-pocket costs for people on Medicare at $2,000 a year. I know that's still a lot of money, but I run into people who say their monthly cost for medication out of pocket is more than $2,000 a month. So this would be the yearly cost. In addition, every month, insulin, again, out of pocket, will only cost $35. Again, we wish it was for everyone, but it's right now only in this bill for people on Medicare. And we're going to begin the process of negotiating for lower drug prices. You know, the big pharmaceutical companies made sure some years ago that there was language in law that said that Medicare could never negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies for lower prices. It's probably been worth by now maybe even $1 trillion in the pockets of big pharma. So we're going to begin that process, starting with 10 different drugs in negotiating for lower prices and moving on every year to more and more. And also, there's a provision in the law that says that when the pharmaceutical companies charge more than the rate of inflation for their drugs, they're going to have to give rebates to consumers. So there's now finally a lot more scrutiny and a lot more action to lower the price of prescription drugs. I think I've told you before, Americans pay 2 to 3 times more for the same exact drugs that are offered around the world than people anywhere else. The good news about this legislation is it won't raise the deficit a penny more than it is, and the way it will be paid for is not by people who make $400,000 or less a year, but by the millionaires and billionaires and the big corporations, many of which, again, the president pointed out, have paid 0 in taxes, are going to fund this legislation. Certainly, that's the right thing to do and the right way to pay. This last week, which by the way is the first week back after the month that members of the House of Representatives were in the district and not in Washington. So this last week, I introduced an important bill that will improve health care. It's called Improve Care and Access to Nurses. Big supporter of nurses, as most Americans are. They have the #1 rating in confidence in them among pretty much all different work groups. Anyway, what my legislation does would allow nurses to provide care totally within the full extent of their licenses. What that means is that advanced practice nurses, including nurse practitioners, including nurse anesthetists, would be able to work their craft, work their professionalism without having supervision of doctors, which is often a real blockage to getting the care and has been proven over and over again to be unnecessary. Let our nurses practice. I also want to talk to you about immigration. What we've been watching on television and actually experiencing in Illinois is unforgivable. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, without any notice, decided to start shipping people that had come across the border. These are people who legally crossed the border to seek asylum in the United States of America. and sending them to different places. Chicago, again, without any notice to the mayor, received 500 people from Texas, immigrants who were sent in busloads to the city of Chicago. And typical of our great city, the city is doing its best to try and accommodate and welcome these immigrants. It's a real challenge. Most of them are not expected actually to stay in Chicago, but we are not only a nation of immigrants, but certainly Chicago is a city of immigrants. My parents immigrated here. Neither was born in the United States, and my life has been changed because of that. I'm a citizen of the United States, and because they became citizens. Not only, though, Greg Abbott. In Florida, Governor DeSantis did basically the same thing, except he decided just to send busloads to Martha's Vineyard. Now, understand what is going on. First of all, both of these states have high numbers of immigrants in them. I'm sure there are a number of people in the state who are really offended by what's happening. But like Chicago, Martha's Vineyard has been welcoming to the people who are coming. And I think what these other governors are thinking is, well, fine, then let's just send these people without telling them even where they are going, to some place that, because they're so liberal and they like immigrants so much. We're talking about often not just individuals, but families, children, infants. No plan made. They're not informed. And, fortunately, where they're going are places that are loving and welcoming, but still, this is not the way to handle immigration. And that's why I am so committed to comprehensive immigration reform. I've been working on it, as has Senator Durbin and many of our members from Illinois, to try and have a proper immigration system. Ours is broken right now, making room for the kinds of terrible things that are happening right now. And speaking of immigrants and people of immigrant descent, this is Hispanic Heritage Month, which has been colorfully and musically and enthusiastically celebrated in our communities. We got off to a really good start, and hope that you're enjoying the opportunities that are open to everyone. Also wanted to tell you about COVID, of course, and just remind you that boosters are available that deal mostly with the Omicron variant, and so it should be available. You should check with your pharmacy, with your doctor, to get for free the booster. I'm hoping to be able to get in line to that in Washington. There's a lot of work that remains before the November 8th election, and everybody is working hard in Washington to try and get it all done. I'll report to you on that next week. I'll see you then. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.